Cuando el nido está acabado, dan un baile con asado. Doña Perica la hornera baila samba, chacarera. Vuelve el gorrión atorrante, vestido de vigilante, haciéndose el distraído, roba amiguitas del nido. Papá gritan los pichones, han entrado los ladrones. Don Perico del gorrión y lo obliga a ser peor. Doña Perica lo llama y lo toma de mucama. Los pichones de niñera que les dé la mamadera. El gorrión lava y cocina, barre, plancha, cose y trina. Miren, miren qué ritmo. Un ladrón trabajador.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to winter. Yes. Me gusta mucho. I'm Reverend Dina McFeeters, honored as always to serve as your associate minister here. These opening words are called Beyond Sight by Rosemary Watola Trommer. All around me, the world was normal. People eating dinner or walking down the street. But my world? Some massive invisible hand kept capturing me, then tossing me in the air. And I'd somersault and fall and be caught. Then placed upright again on the ground. All night it went on like this. I'd be walking, and then I'd be flying, and then I'd be falling, and then I'd be caught. Until finally, by morning, we couldn't say that it wasn't disconcerting, but we could say I had become more fluent in this strange upheaval. We could say I had begun to trust the same hand that tossed me would catch me. We could say that when I woke up, I was still myself, and nothing was the same. And though my feet never left the ground today, I was tossed, and then I was caught. Even now, I almost feel them around my chest, those great fingers as they set me on my feet again. Please rise in body or spirit to sing Hymn of Hope, which is on the insert in your order of service.
I carry hope in my heart, even when I don't feel hope. I decide to make a home in my heart, even as the darkness says. I do my best so I can
Good morning. I am Reverend Kimberly Tomshek Carlson, and it is my honor to serve as your Minister of Religious Education. The story I have for you today is called Maddie's Fridge, and it's written by Lois Brandt. When Sophia and Maddie played at the park, they stretched their toes to the sky. They climbed to the top of the ladder and flew off the end of the slide. They stayed until the buildings grew long shadows and even the taxis stopped honking. Let's play on the climbing wall, Maddie said. No way, said Sophia. I can't reach. Yes way, said Maddie. Maddie scooted up to the top of the wall. Your turn. Sophia put a foot on the bottom rock, grabbed with one hand, and stretched, but she couldn't get the next hold. Sophia's stomach growled. I give up. Let's get a snack. No way, said Maddie. Let's stay here. Yes way. Sophia ran to Maddie's building and raced up the stairs. Wait, said Maddie, who ran after her. Maddie was the best climber, but Sophia, well, she was the fastest runner. Sophia swung open the door of Maddie's fridge. What do you got? We have milk, Maddie said. I'm saving it for Ryan. He's still little. Why doesn't your mom go to the store? Sophia asked. We don't have enough money. But what if you get hungry? We have some bread, Maddie said. I guess I'll go home to eat, Sophia said. Please, don't tell anyone, Maddie said. Okay, promise? I promise. Sophia ran home past the bookstore and the grocery store, and the sun went down behind the buildings and took all the colors with it. Good timing, Mom said. Dinner's almost ready. Luis was wrestling with their dog Pepito on the floor. Sophia opened the refrigerator door, and Pepito peeked inside. Sophia's fridge was full of milk and eggs and tortillas and cheese and lettuce and jam and salsa and tofu and even a half a can of dog food. Here you go, Mom said. Sophia and Luis each had a plate of fish and rice. Mom had a plate of fish and rice. Even Pepito had a small bowl of dog food and a little bit of fish and rice. Maddie and Ryan, well, they only had some bread and a small carton of milk. Sophia couldn't tell Mom. She had to keep her promise to Maddie. Not fish again, Luis said. I want cheesy pizza bombs. Cheesy pizza bombs are a treat, Mom said. Fish is a good source of protein. Is fish good for kids? Sophia asked. Yes, Mom said. Fish is perfect for kids. That night, Sophia had an idea. She put some fish in her backpack. Yuck, Maddie said the next day. Oh, Sophia said, double yuck. Fish might be good for kids, but fish is not good for backpacks. After school, Sophia and Maddie raced to the climbing wall. Sophia got there first, but Maddie scrambled past her just up to the top again. And Sophia stretched and she stretched. Keep trying, said Maddie. You'll get it. I can't, said Sophia, and she jumped down. It's just too high. That night, Sophia, Luis, and Mom had burritos. Pepito had his dog food with a little bit of burrito. Maddie and Ryan, well, they still had an empty fridge. Sophia, she wished she hadn't promised Maddie. Are burritos good for kids? Sophia asked. Burritos are good for you, Mom said. Not as good as cheesy pizza bombs, Luis said. You should try paying attention to nutrition like your sister, Mom said. But that next morning, Sophia put 2 burritos in her backpack, along with tortillas, beans, cheese, and even some milk. Want to take a look? No, but you haven't even tried. Is it fish? Maddie asked. No. Is it gross? I don't know. Maddie shook the backpack. Something sloshed. Let's look together, Maddie said. 1, 2, 3, go. Burritos are good for good kids and good for backpacks. Do you want some milk, Sophia said. Thanks, said Maddie, but I think I'll save it for Ryan. Maddie and Sophia raced to the climbing wall. Sophia won as usual. And Sophia won as usual and tried to climb. You can do it, Maddie said. Take my hand. Oh, oh, ooh! I made it to the top, Sophia shouted. We are now the tallest kids in the park, Maddie said. Thanks for helping me, Maddie. I couldn't do it alone, Maddie shrugged. That's what friends are for. After they finished playing, Sophia walked home past the bookstore and the grocery store, and she thought, and she thought. Her own fridge was full of milk and juice and chicken and yogurt and bread and carrots and even that half a can of dog food. And Maddie's fridge only had 2 tortillas, a cup of beans, a bit of cheese, and a little more bread, milk than before. Sophia didn't want to break her promise, but she couldn't help Maddie alone. She told. She hoped Maddie wouldn't be mad, but she told her mom. I'm glad you told me, Mom said. Let's see what we can do together. They loaded grocery bags with milk and flour and chicken and carrots and sugar and oil and even frozen meat and vegetables. Luis pulled out his package of cheesy pizza bombs out of the freezer, and he thought, and he thought, and he thought some more, and he put his cheesy pizza bombs in Maddie and Ryan's bag. For a treat, he said. At Maddie's apartment, the moms talked. Luis and Ryan played. Maddie and Sophie ran to the park. You broke your promise, Maddie said. I'm sorry. Are you mad? A promise is important, Maddie said. You are more important, Sophia said, and I wanted you to have milk too. Maddie smiled. Are we still friends, Sophia asked. Always, Maddie said. Double always, Sophia said. Cheesy pizza bombs, Luis yelled from the window. Our moms made the cheesy pizza bombs for a treat. Sophia and Maddie, they raced up the stairs. Sophia slowed so they could run together. Because, well, that is what friends are for. The end.
As we enter into a centering time of spoken meditation, followed by silence, followed by singing Spirit of Life, hymn 123. While seated, I invite you to find a way to get yourself centered where you are, in the pew or on the chair. Find a way to ground yourself, however that works for you. You might bring attention to your feet that are grounding you. You might notice your spine. Is it resting? Is it supporting you? Maybe you notice the sensation of the air on your skin, or how your breath is coming in and moving out of your lungs. This Act of Faith by Gretchen Haley. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes, and forwarded emails, as if they're the new zodiac, capable of forecasting all that life might bring our way. As if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we'd thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from needing to know, from the yearning to have it all already figured out, and the burden of believing we have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. that possibility that is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Trudy Watt, and I am so honored to serve as your worship associate. We are a faith community of many identities. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We also welcome all the people watching online as we live stream this service. Hi, everyone online. We enthusiastically welcome guests joining us today, if you have made it through the snow. If you are a visiting guest, we invite you to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plates that will come around in a few minutes. After the service, please join us for a coffee hour, social hour across the hall in the Lean House Common Room. A few accessibility notes. You can find hearing assist devices and large print hymnals and orders of service at the back of the sanctuary, as well as worship activity bags for children and anyone who wants them. There is a fragrance-free area in the front right pews, And if you're watching online, you can enable YouTube's closed captioning on your viewing device. I have a few announcements for you today. One of our First Church members is hoping to revive the young adult group in our community. If you are a member or friend or guest of First Church in your 20s or 30s and might be interested in a group that gathers for social activities and connection, consider yourself invited to an interest meeting on Sunday, March 23rd at 12:30 p.m. to be held downstairs in the Young Room here at First Church. If you can't attend but are interested in participating or possibly co-leading, please reach out to Mariah Cowder. If you've been attending First Church for a while and feel like you found your spiritual home, consider taking our Journey to Membership class. This series runs 4 Wednesday evenings in person at church, April 9 through 30 at 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Sign up at the connections table during coffee hour or register on our website by April 6th. And finally, please join Earth Justice Ministry and Plastic Free MKE in the common room during the social hours today to help reduce the devastating effects of single-use plastics. I welcome you to share in our First Church worship and purpose by inviting you to join me in a unison affirmation of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Every week, we have an opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledge cash in our offering plate with a community organization, practicing our value of interdependence. Today, we share the plate with Plastic Free MKE. To contribute, put cash or checks made out to Milwaukee Riverkeeper with the memo Plastic Free MKE in the offering plate, and we will forward it for you. The offering will now be gratefully received as we sing seated our children's recessional hymn, number 95, More Love Somewhere. I invite all children, youth, and RE volunteers to sing the first verse of the hymn, and then follow Reverend Kimberly to the Leanhouse Common Room, and then downstairs for religious education. If your child needs to check in for RE, please accompany them. May the practice of giving bring us joy. During the COVID lockdown period, I spent a year learning and collaborating with a global cohort in a program called Applied Compassion Training, or ACT. The program was born out of a collaboration between the Dalai Lama and a neurosurgeon named Dr. James Doty. In ACT, we learned and practiced mindfulness while working with mentors and small groups to develop our own independent capstone projects. One day, in our small group, a colleague announced that her capstone project was going to be a series of guided reflections and a support group for pathologically self-reliant people. I suddenly felt extremely self-conscious. Pathologically self-reliant, that was me. A year later, my spouse Christopher and I were so proud to achieve a major benchmark in self-reliance. After years of saving, scheming, trying, and failing, we finally bought a house. With our own house and property, it felt like we had reached a new level of security and certainty in our ability to provide for ourselves. The house is a 100-year-old bungalow in the Silver City neighborhood, a few blocks south of the Mitchell Park Domes. Before we moved in, it needed a deep clean and some minor repairs that took us about 3 weeks to complete. So every day after work, Christopher and I were over there, scrubbing, hammering, trimming, hauling, and so on. We noticed the neighbors noticing us, and I felt really good about showing up in such a handy, hardworking, and self-reliant way. Sometime during the second week or so of this nonstop cleaning project, Christopher and I were catching our breaths in the backyard under an old patio shelter we've come to call the Holiday Lounge. One side of the Holiday Lounge sits right on the fence that divides our yard from the neighbors to the north. "Hey neighbors," we heard a woman's voice call from behind the wooden fence. Christopher and I looked at each other in surprise. The last neighborhood we lived in didn't have neighbors that yelled through the fence. "Hey neighbors," the woman repeated, "I've got some dinner for you." We looked up to see a pair of hands waggling a container of homemade enchiladas over the fence. And this was the beginning of our relationship with the family that lives next door. This was also the beginning of a different kind of relationship, a different kind of trust with our new neighborhood. Since then, many small and large matters have continued to weave us together with our neighbors. We all sit on our front porches and talk while we hand out candy on Halloween or watch neighborhood fireworks on the 4th of July, even though it's a really busy street and we have to shout to hear each other. We exchange vegetables that we grow in our gardens. The neighbor and I also exchange our favorite inside joke, which starts with me doing some manual labor in the yard and ends with my neighbor asking if my husband Christopher is inside sleeping. Or drinking. He's not. On a more serious note, one time our neighbor's 3-year-old son went missing, and we all leaped into action to search the neighborhood for him. We were all so scared, adrenaline pumping through our bodies. He was found, thankfully and somewhat inexplicably, sleeping behind a dresser in an upstairs bedroom at home. Over these past few years, our relationships with the family next door and other neighbors have become a network of interconnections and pathways for simply caring that I haven't experienced before. In my nomadic life dominated by the illusion of self-reliance, I really didn't know what I was missing. You might think it was the search for the missing boy that cemented my feelings of connection and belonging with the neighbors. But it was actually the unexpected dinner, passed over the fence when we were still strangers, that told me I am safe and at home. With relationships and neighbors like these, I'm pretty sure I don't need that support group for pathologically self-reliant people anymore.
Perhaps some of you have heard this old story about a guy who was standing alone, leaning over a fence, enjoying a beautiful view from the top of the Grand Canyon when suddenly the fence gave way and seconds later he was plunging down into the abyss. Halfway to the bottom, the desperate thrashing of his arms helped him catch and clutch the branch of a scrubby tree that was growing out from the canyon wall. Grasping and gasping, he looked both up and down. There was no way he could climb up that sheer cliff, even if he could swing his body toward the wall. But below yawned the chasm, unbroken by any other nearby tree. To fall would be to die. He hung there, out of sight, knowing the wind would scatter his voice no matter how loudly he shouted to any possible humans at the top of the canyon. So he cried out to the heavens, "God, help me." But hearing his own trembling voice, he wailed again louder, "Please, God, help me." And to his amazement, he heard an answer. The voice said, "Let go. Let go." Looking down again, the man saw the depth of the canyon and the huge boulders waiting far below, and he knew again if he let go, he would surely die. He yelled back, "But God, you don't understand. I'm too far up." "Let go," the voice repeated, and silence filled the canyon. Then, in a weak, terrified voice, the man called out, "Is there anyone else up there?" Trust. Our lives depend on our ability to trust in both extreme and mundane situations. Deciding who and what we can trust is a lifelong process. Who do you trust? And do they trust you back? How do we build trust into a wide variety of relationships and connections so that we can let go of control now and then and know that someone's got us? Building trust is inherently mutual. It's not one-sided. So how do we do it? Grounded theory researcher Brené Brown develops helpful theories based on people's lived experiences. She gathers thousands of examples from interviews with people about things like trust. Then she organizes the data and proposes a theory. She breaks it down into something we can work with in our own lives. Last Sunday, Reverend Kimberly worked with our children using Brené Brown's theory of trust. To understand how this works, you need to know about the marble jar. Anybody know about the marble jar? Maybe you've heard about it. Maybe you've listened to the TED Talk. I'll give you a brief version. Brené Brown, in her TED Talk, describes the day that her daughter came home from 3rd grade and just dissolved into tears. And what happened was that her daughter had shared something with 2 friends during recess, and then they later told everybody in the class. So when she got back from recess, everyone was laughing and making fun of her. The teacher interrupted by telling the class they were going to get some marbles taken out of the marble jar for choosing to act in this hurtful way. See, in that classroom, there was a jar, and there were some marbles, and marbles were put into the jar when children acted in ways that positively built up their relationships, and marbles were taken out of the jar when the children's actions damaged those relationships. And well, you know why they were doing it, right? To build these social and emotional skills and build community, but the incentive was to fill the jar so the whole class would get a reward once the jar was full. Well, after hearing her daughter's story of what happened that day and how the marble jar works, Brown asked her daughter, "Do you have any marble jar friends? Friends who put marbles into your jar? Friends you can trust?" And yes, she did. So Brown asked, How do your friends become marble jar friends? What do they do to put marbles in the jar? She was surprised to hear it was mostly small things, which were actually big things, like saving a seat at the lunch table, or remembering her grandparents' names, or asking how a sick relative is doing. Brown realized that trust is like a marble jar. For every moment of trust earned, one marble goes in the jar. She says, imagine that every person you meet has an invisible marble jar. Whenever we connect with someone, we have the opportunity to add marbles or take them away. So on a bulletin board in the hallway of our religious education wing in this building, Reverend Kimberly posted a large drawing of a jar, and the kids wrote on paper marbles some behaviors that build trust. Examples of how we fill the marble jar: use kind words, be a good listener, share, give compliments, help a friend, ask if someone is okay, apologize, stand up to a bully. Examples of how we empty the marble jar: make mean jokes, exclude others, gossip, share someone's private story, ignore someone's feelings, use hurtful words, bully someone, or ignore bullying. When we do marble jar filling behaviors, it makes people feel happy and builds on the friendship. But when we do emptying behaviors, it makes them sad and hurts the friendship. I mean, that's really all you need to know, but if we want to be adult about it, I can tell you about Brené Brown's BRAVING acronym, which she uses to describe the anatomy of trust. When she analyzed her research, she discovered 7 elements of trust and arranged them into the acronym of BRAVING: boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, I'll tell you about that later, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. BRAVING serves as this helpful checklist when we're working with trust. Trust is like that marble jar built up over time. It takes practice and experience, and it helps us believe that someone's worthy of our trust when we have built up their marble jar and they have built up ours. It helps us know when we are worthy of their trust. Brown says when we trust, we are braving connections with others. B is for boundaries. Make clear what's okay and what's not okay and why. R is for reliability. Do what you say you're going to do repeatedly. A is for accountability. When you make a mistake, you own it, apologize, and make amends. Vault. This is not the pole vault. This is like the bank vault. This is like zip your lips, turn the lock, and throw away the key. What I share with you, you hold in confidence, and what you share with me, I hold in confidence. I is for integrity. Match your words with your actions. Choose courage over comfort. Choose what's right over what's easy. Practice your values. N is for non-judgment, meaning that we can fall apart, we can ask for help, and not be judged by each other. G is for generosity. Assume the most generous things about others, and when things go wrong, check in with them. So braving can be used as a tool for reflection and action. We can think about trust in its different aspects and intentionally work on each aspect to build trust. And when we lose trust, we can reflect again on these 7 aspects and figure out what went wrong. So instead of just saying, I'm hurt, I don't trust you anymore, we can figure out why. For example, maybe I set a boundary with you, telling you to please not call me before 8 a.m., and you called me every day this week before 8 a.m. Or I relied on you for emotional support, and you didn't show up for my mother's funeral. Or you forgot to pick up my kid after school, and you never apologized. Or I told you something in strict confidence, I made that clear, and then you broke the vault, and it came back to me through my neighbor's mouth. I'm trying to assume the most generous thing, but I need to know what happened, etc. We can reflect on what happened, we can name it, and we can choose to talk about it, to build back trust if that is an option. And Brown says it works with self-trust too. When you lose trust in yourself, go through the list. Did I honor my own boundaries in that situation? Did I keep my promise to myself? Did I make a mistake, and can I forgive myself? Did I overshare my own confidential info? Did I act with integrity? Was I pathologically self-reliant? Did I judge myself when I needed help? Etc. Did I assume the worst thing about someone and act out of fear? Because braving means braving self-love. Brown says if your own marble jar is not full, if you can't count on yourself, then you can't give others what you don't have. Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg says to offer our hearts in faith or in trust means recognizing that our hearts are worth something, that we ourselves in our deepest and truest nature are of value. I believe that relationships with people, communities, institutions are built at the speed of trust, which is sometimes slow and unpredictable, and that's okay. Trust grows through taking reasonable risks. Over the last few months, I've been stretching myself. I've been taking a few reasonable risks to build trust in more relationships. I've been talking to my neighbors more, striking up conversations at the gym with people I don't know. And you guys, you know I'm an introvert. I've even been calling my political representatives to voice my opinions. Now, when I feel nervous doing this, I ask myself, why am I nervous? Oh, yeah, it's because I'm taking a risk and I'm making myself a little bit more vulnerable. Charles Feldman defines trust as choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. Building trust happens with people we know and people we don't yet know. Building trust with people we don't know really took a hit during the pandemic lockdown 5 years ago. I mean, who was carrying the COVID-19 virus and who wasn't? We could never tell. Who could we trust to wear a mask, especially around our immunocompromised loved ones? Then after the November 2024 election, it seems so long ago, doesn't it? Especially since a day is no longer a day. Well, post-election, our trust in people that we don't know took another hit on both sides of the aisle. Several of you shared with me that you felt a significant drop in your trust in the goodness of humanity, that you felt a higher sense of suspicion as you went about your days. And I felt it too. Is that person next to me at the bus stop someone who hates my trans kid or hates me? Is my coworker someone who would call ICE on my neighbor or on me? These questions were in our minds. Lesson 12 from Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century, instructs us to resist tyranny by making eye contact and small talk with people. Seriously, this simple practice can help resist tyranny. He writes, this is not just polite. It is part of being a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation You will want to know the psychological landscape of your life. He continues, tyrannical regimes arose at different times and places in Europe of the 20th century, but memoirs of their victims all share a single tender moment. Whether the recollection is of fascist Italy in the 1920s, of Nazi Germany of the 1930s, of the Soviet Union during the Great Terror of 37-38, or of the purges in communist Eastern Europe in the 40s and 50s. People who were living in fear of repression remembered how their neighbors treated them. A smile, a handshake, or a word of greeting took on great significance. When friends, colleagues, and acquaintances looked away or crossed the street to avoid contact, fear grew. I was curious about a culture of denunciation, so I looked up the word. The dictionary says that denunciation means the public condemnation of someone or the act of informing against someone. Do you think we are there yet? Can eye contact and small talk with strangers help to save us from denunciation? Mahmoud Khalil was illegally arrested and detained by ICE on March 8th. Mahmoud is living in the United States legally, a permanent resident with a green card. There is no legal reason for his arrest and detention. He was targeted as an example for the rest of us. Before I say more, I would like to lift up that here at First Church, we have a free pulpit and free pews. You are free to express your opinions and beliefs, and I am free to express mine, and we don't have to agree. We live within covenanted community here, not a creedal faith. We don't promise right belief. We promise to treat each other well, to risk vulnerability, to build trust in each other. Part of living in covenanted community is being aware of the multiplicity of identities that we carry, to learn how we are personally affected by what's happening in the world, to know each other's hearts. I know that suffering is alive for you in so many ways. I know that you feel the heart-rending grief of seeing dead Israeli hostages coming back out of Gaza. Infants, children, mothers. I know you feel the heart-breaking weight of more than 13,000 Palestinian children killed in the war. I know you want Israelis to be safe. I know you want Palestinians to be free. I know you want Jewish and Muslim people to be safe and at peace wherever they live. And the world is complicated. Our identities matter as we feel this grief, as we form opinions on what we think should happen. Although ICE could target anyone, it matters that they illegally arrested and detained a Palestinian activist, someone who protested the war in Gaza. ICE chose Mahmoud because they think they can disappear him. They think they can get away with it. Hay una mujer desaparecida. Hay una mujer desaparecida. En Chile, en Chile, en Chile. But this is not Chile under the dictator Pinochet. Not yet. This is the United States. and the detention of Mahmoud is a test of democracy. In a democracy, the right to due process applies to citizens and permanent residents, legal permanent residents, whether we agree with their views or not. Mahmoud was arrested not because of his immigration status, but because he expressed his political opinions publicly at a university and because his views go against the current administration's foreign policy. Mahmoud was threatened with deportation because he protested. In a democracy, we have the right to protest a lot of different things. We need to pay attention to the context of this arrest and detention. The news has reported that the Department of Homeland Security is using intelligence information to identify students who protest at universities. And the department is putting pressure on universities to suppress free speech and to release names. We need to pay attention to the complexity of protesters as well. Hundreds of Jewish activists took over the lobby of Trump Tower last week, demanding the immediate release of Mahmoud. Who is our neighbor? Are we our brother's keeper? Who do we trust to catch us when we fall? These ancient religious questions are alive in our suffering while more and more tests of democracy unfold. How will we build deeper mutuality with each other in these times, with both known and unknown peoples? For the past may be with us in a decision to trust, but the future is too.
Hermanos, hermanos cantan. Edifica así mis hermanos, hermanos que oran. Edifica así mis hermanos, hermanos cantan. Oh, mi Señor, yo cantaré es por tu gloria. Edifica así mis hermanos, hermanos cantan. Benefica así mis hermanos, hermanos lloran. Benefica así mis hermanos, hermanos cantan. Oh mi Señor, yo cantaré es por tu gloria. Yo cantaré, Dios, cuando la iglesia se levanta. Te cantaré porque, Señor, tú eres bueno y me despierta llorar. Beneficas y mis hermanos cantan. Beneficas y mis hermanos lloran. Beneficas y mis hermanos cantan. Oh mi Señor, yo cantaré es por tu gloria. Beneficas y mis hermanos cantan. Beneficas y mis hermanos lloran. Beneficas y mis hermanos cantan. Oh mi Señor, yo cantaré es por tu gloria.
These closing words are by Brian Doyle. Of course you do your absolute best to find and hone and wield your divine gifts against the dark. You do your best to reach out tenderly, to touch and elevate as many people as you can reach. You bring your naked love and divine courage and salty grace to bear on as much as you can, with all the attentiveness and humor you can muster. But you cannot control anything. You cannot fix and repair everything. You cannot protect your children from pain and loss and tragedy and illness. You cannot be sure that you will always be married, let alone happily married. You cannot be sure you will always be employed or healthy or relatively sane. All you can do is face the world with a quiet grace and hope you make a sliver of difference. You must trust that you being the best possible you matters somehow. That trying to be an honest and tender parent will echo for centuries down through your tribe. That doing your chosen work with creativity and diligence will shiver people far beyond your ken. That being an attentive and generous friend and citizen will prevent a thread or two of the social fabric from unraveling. And you must do all of this with the certain knowledge that the vast majority of the things you do right will go utterly unremarked. This is what I know, that the small is huge and that the tiny is vast. May it be so. Please rise and body your spirit, and we'll join in singing hymn 396, I Know This Rose Will Open. Alyssa and Desiree will lead us.